Hello, Vision for Youth National Youth Ministry Conference 2020. Guess what? We're not together, so we are doing things differently. I'm so excited to join you virtually this year. I've got a really great opportunity to meet a lot of you the last couple of years at Clarksville University during Team Leadership Conference, and got to spend some time with you guys over the last couple of years, so I've really get to know a lot of you guys. So I really enjoy, continue to connect with you, hear from a lot of you through email, through Twitter, through texting, through all different ways. So I'm just so excited to join you again. I think Mel and Tim are just amazing Vision for Youth guys. Just so much love those guys, and I just thank them for inviting me back to be part of this and be able to share with you a little bit. A little introduction to who I am if you have not met me or just kind of tuning in or checking this out online. My name is Istvanik. I'm a 26-year youth ministry veteran, working with students, working with families, done a little children's ministry, a little college ministry, but the core of what I've done the last couple of years has really been with students and with families, and really taking some time. So I actually just accepted a new position just outside of Chicago as a family pastor at the Christian Church of Clarendon Hills. So I'm so excited to be a part of their ministry very, very soon. Hi guys, if you're tuning in from my new church, God's been doing some neat things in our lives and in our ministry through COVID. Has kind of been changing and transitioning our ministry, but God's continued to call us to what we do. So I love being able to continue to share my heart with you. A few places you can find me is I have a website, midyearsministry.com is where we've been spending a lot of time the last year or two, just kind of putting out resources. We have daily blogs, other things in there. You can kind of find a lot of this information. I've been also having an opportunity to kind of really be blessed to write for a lot of different places. Right now I'm a core content writer for ministry called ministryparents.com, and just an opportunity for you to find resources to help you do a better job of family ministry to parents. We have a children's ministry section and a youth ministry section. So no matter what you're doing in your ministry, ministryparents.com is a place where we have lots of great resources there. I'm also writing for a few other places like Orange recently just joined their team. A few other spots over the last couple of years. I've just really been blessed to be a part of youth ministry, continue to do what I do here, which is just this. It's just hanging out with people like you, whether virtually or in person, just getting you ready and keeping you in the game. Youth ministry over the long haul is so valuable. I mean, if you've not heard Mel's session yet, you'll hear that there's a value in sticking it out in youth ministry. So hopefully as you kind of connect with each other, connect through this website and some other things that are happening here, you see the value. I've seen the value, and I want to be able to share that with you. So that's who I am. That's who I am, what I'm presenting to you. So we're really excited. As Mel and I are talking, we talked about this idea of where we're at in youth ministry. Very specifically to where we are right now at this moment, middle of July 2020, we're coming out, hopefully very soon, out of a national pandemic. You know this, you know where we've all been locked in, we've been out of church, and now we're starting to see kind of an opening, slowly from red to green, or yellow to green. We're starting to see churches open, we're starting to see restaurants open, places open. So what happens next? And I want to talk to you about the return to youth ministry. Are you ready for what youth ministry might look like post-COVID, in a post-COVID world? I mean, we're really living in just a whole brand new time. And in a lot of ways, we're ready to be able to reinvent who we are in youth ministry. I'm not going to bore you all with statistics, but COVID-19, coronavirus, we have 2.7 million cases of coronavirus as of yesterday. So I was looking some of this information up. We have 130,000 plus deaths happening in the United States. What's happening is we have students who are being impacted by this. They haven't been in school for quite a few months. Now they're in the summer. They're trying to figure out what happens next. And they're watching the news with their parents. They're online with their friends. They're just worn out. And now we're opening back up. Are we ready? Are we ready for what's going to happen? Are we ready for youth ministry? What youth ministry might look like come in a few weeks, or even right now. Maybe you're meeting with youth ministry, your youth ministry is already opening back up, and I'm so excited to hear about those. If you want to contact me, I'd love to hear about how things are going. But if not, this is what today is about. Tonight's about. It's just about opportunity to talk to you a little bit. We have three things we're going to talk about, but before we get that, on my website, a few weeks back, very beginning of all of this, I kind of sat down and started thinking about what are the things that are going to have to start changing. About a month into the lockdown, a month into a lot of stuff, started talking to people from around the country, thinking through the ministry that I was serving with, and said, what are the things that might have to change? So as we start this off, I'm just going to give you a couple more 10 questions, not necessarily 10 answers. You can look up on my website. I have the link in the bottom of the slides that we provide for Mel to put up on the website. You can link back and kind of see some of my thoughts about each one of these points. But what I want to do is I want you to get thinking as we present kind of later on, but I want to give you 10 questions to think about that what things might have to change in youth ministry after the quarantine. And we're right there. So this is about 2 months back I was writing this, now we're right there. The first thing, number 10, I'm going to this backwards. Number 10 is food. Obviously we've seen restaurants, we've seen establishments close, we're seeing restaurants go out of business because of this. But we need to also think about us in youth ministry, in our church. What does food look like come the week we get back, or a few weeks after, even probably the rest of the year? What does food look like? You know, are we supposed to be serving food? Can we serve food? What kind of food can we serve? How are we serving it? What is it going to be? Is it going to be prepackaged? I know right before all of this happened, as we were getting close to shutting down, we had an event at my church, and we did pre-packaged food. We went and found some tasty cakes. We found some different things that were pre-packaged. We had sodas that were sealed, so everybody grabbed their pre-packaged food and their pre-packaged soda, so they weren't touching each other's stuff. We know students, I mean, we're playing, they're hanging out. You know, do they wash their hands? Do they even hand sanitize before they stick their fingers through that big bowl of chips you have sitting out on the counter? So start thinking, you know, just start thinking about what food looked like. Number 9 I put up here is games. What do games look like post-COVID? You know, the games we've always loved, we've always played, are they going to be different? They're going to have to be different. Social distancing is going to create a different environment, at least for the short term. But also going forward, can we really do some of the games we used to do? I mean, simple things like dunking for something. Can we really have 2 kids sticking their mouth in a mutual bowl of Jell-O as they dig through to find your chunk of Spam or whatever it is? We have to really start thinking. So as I said, go back to my website, look at some of my thoughts, but what does food and what does games look like? Number 8, our continued online presence. I've seen so many creative things. I know some of you are probably struggling. I've heard both sides. I think some people are struggling with the Zoom fatigue we've heard so much about. But a lot of people, I'm sure even yourself, you've tried to do some very creative things in online presence. The first week back, or next couple weeks back, you're not gonna have everybody back. What does it look like to continue on to do online? Will online be the expression that you always will have moving forward? So think about that a little bit as you get ready for the next step of your ministry. Number 7 I put is creativity of your content. If nothing else, in all of this, we've been forced to be far more creative. It's not like you haven't been creative before, but now we have to find creativity in a brand new way. And so will our creativity of our content continue on? You know, we're seeing a lot of change in how we do things and what we do, and the creativity to kind of keep kids engaged as they're getting tired of seeing us and the same old stuff online. I've seen some great things happening, great resources out there. And what do we do when we continue to do that? Number 6 I put up here is how do we make and keep connections? In the middle of this, connection has been huge. Students are disconnected and connected. We've seen kids online a lot more, but they're tired of it. They want to be connected. Well, what does it look like for us to make those connections, keep those connections? Because we've seen that. Suddenly sports is shut down. Suddenly everything else is shut down. We have students who want to connect. And that's a challenge. What do we do now moving forward? But how do we keep those connections we've created? Number 5, ministry definition of community. I think if one of the big things, I mean, of all the things that keep changing, is our definition of what community looks like has completely changed in the middle of all this. So what is our new definition of community? How do we define it? What makes community? What keeps community? And how do we see students finding community? I think there's a big deal. The ways we see, do, and continue discipleship. For so long, we've seen discipleship as one very simple kind of idea, face-to-face, eye-to-eye, heart-to-heart, sitting in a coffee shop, sitting in a park bench somewhere. And what we've seen over the last couple months is discipleship. The way we do it is different. We're doing it virtually, but also we have some care things that are happening. So what happens when this is all done? How do we see, do, and continue discipleship when this is all over? And how do we keep up with what we've already been doing? Number 3, our understanding of teaching and learning. All I said, creativity and connection and discipleship. In the middle of all this, guess what? We haven't been able to stand in front and behind the podium and to preach at students. Hopefully that's not what you've been doing. But now as we move forward, students want something different. We have to start thinking about how we do teaching versus learning. Something maybe I'll post in my notes later on is a few years ago I talked to, did a few podcasts, and wrote a piece called The Difference Between Preaching and Teaching. And then there's a transition that's happening in learning styles. And I think over the last couple months, we've seen that even more aware of that, is there's a difference between us standing up and lecturing students and us standing beside students and with students and teaching them. And so as we think about that over the last couple months, what do we see and understand about teaching and how we see kids learning? Kids are learning. Schooling has completely changed. How we do school, probably even to the fall. I'm hearing a lot of schools around the country, they're not going back to normal school come fall. So are we gonna really go back to normal youth group, how we've normally taught, how we've normally done Sunday school or youth group or Bible studies or small groups or home groups or however you define it in your ministry? What does teaching and learning look like? It changes a lot. So we need to start thinking about that. A big one, we love the high fives, the personal hugs. Number 2 is the personal and physical touch and greeting. How do we let students know physically that we love them, we care for them without having that personal touch? Social distancing is the new word, the new buzzword that we're all hearing. And so we need to start thinking about that as we get back in. I think the number one thing as we get into some of this is the new reality of the need for better parent and family ministry. The number one thing I put on my list a few months ago, and I've kind of had a lot of conversations since that time, is the reality is that we have been doing a great job of working with parents, a great job of ministering to families and teaching families, engaging families, encouraging families, equipping families. It's blaringly obvious now because we've had 3 or 4 months and ministry has been family. I mean, whether students are jumping on our Zoom call or not, where we're calling them or emailing or connecting with them in some way, mom and dad have been locked in at home with their student. And whether we've been doing a great job of getting them ready for this or not, it's going to be blaringly obvious. So no matter what, the new reality is we have to be doing parent ministry. We have to be doing family ministry moving forward because we've had a concerted time of moms and dads sitting with their student. Those are the 10 questions I put out on my website as we get started, just kind of get your brain rolling. Just think about your ministry, what's going to have to change. But also I think there's some big things we're going to have to battle. There's some big things that we're going to have to battle. There's some big moments that we're going to have to face. So what I would do is I really want to spend some time just talking about the 3 big real battles we're going to face. Are you ready for this return? Are you ready for the battles of the post-COVID youth ministry? I think the first thing that we're going to be battling is acceptance. It's acceptance. Our students are going to have to come to accept some things that happened over the last 4 months, but also accept a new reality, accept the changes they're being facing. So I put a few things in here. Maybe you can probably add a whole lot more to the list. You can feel free to email me, feel free to comment to each other and add more to the list. But we need to kind of help students as they come back together, as we start doing ministry, to come to acceptance. I think one big thing the first big thing we're gonna be talking about is acceptance of death of friends and family. There's a lot of people their students are gonna be connected with that have contracted corona. And I think even in the next months, we see spikes happening over the last week. There's gonna be some more deaths. And also there's a shift happening for younger and younger people contracting COVID. So what does it look like for students to come to the fact there's acceptance that there are friends and family members that have passed away from this? There's gonna be a lot of processing we're gonna have to do. There's gonna be a lot of times we talk and say, hey, look, this is what we need to talk about. Number 2, acceptance of their own health, hygiene, and risk. As students come out of lockdown, come out of quarantine, they're gonna have to get to a point where they accept responsibility for their own health, if they accept the responsibility for their own hygiene, they accept responsibility for the risks, even as they come into youth group. This is gonna cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of things that are struggling, but we need to help our students accept this new reality. Even in how we minister to them is gonna be different because we're getting them ready to make sure that they stay healthy, they stay clean, that our places, the places we minister to are sanitized, but also even the risks, accepting the risk of coming out and hanging out with us at group. So be aware of that. I think the acceptance of social distancing to continue, that's one of the other things we're gonna accept them for. Our students are gonna have to get used to the fact that social distancing is gonna be the norm, at least in the short term. I think even moving forward, I think we'll be surprised at how long this social distancing idea continues on. There's gonna be a lot of families that are not gonna come back to group right away. They're not gonna come back physically to our ministries because of the fear of risk. And there's gonna be students that come back and they are going to be really engaging in this idea of social distancing, and they're gonna have to accept that. They're gonna accept each other. They're gonna accept this. A big part of this, in the middle of this, is we're gonna have to really be very accepting parents. Parents and families are a huge moment. And for us, we need to be very accepting of those students whose parents don't allow their students to come back. We have to be very aware. We cannot risk our reputation, our relationships, because we are criticizing or making a parent feel embarrassed in front of their child because we're not being willing to accept or help them accept the social distancing, the need to come. Acceptance of a different school year. I've mentioned that already, but there's a lot of schools that are not going back to normal. So how we do ministry in a school setting, how we do ministry to them, even how they accept this new model of education, we need to be able to process that well. We need to be able to process this well. Once again, it's a matter of respect. We respect families, but also be very respectful of their school districts and their decisions, the government, the teachers, the principals. It's easy for us to slip in and try to be the cool one. It's like, oh, that's so dumb, or I don't like that. But to say, no, we need to be very accepting of this. I think a big one that our students are really struggling with, and I've talked to some students like this, but a loss of time, a loss of celebration of life. There's a lot of students coming out of COVID over the last couple months of the school year now into summer. There's graduations, there's birthdays, there's vacations, there's other moments of celebration that our students are never going to get back. Especially our students who are heading into proms and different dances, different social events, they've had completely missed out on. And I know the school districts and a lot of people have done great jobs. I know a lot of youth pastors like yourself have done a great job of responding to this and to really make sure that kids feel valued. But the reality is it's not the same. And so we need to make sure that they accept that. And the last one is just this, it's accepting the changed world. Our world is never going to be the same. The last generation dealt with 9/11. Our generation that we're dealing with right now, Generation Z, what's going to affect them, what's going to change them is COVID. This pandemic, this virus is going to be a change moment for this generation. It's going to define this generation. Their world is never going to be the same because of that. So what I do is, as I kind of wrap up this point, is I just want to go scriptural. We're going to spend some time in Philippians 4. After each time we get together and to talk about each thing, I just want to spend some time in Philippians 4. Because I want to give you some helpful things. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to provide this presentation to you. I'm going to provide a flat version of it and an editable version of this so that you can use this with your leaders, with your parents, maybe even your students in some way. So I want to add something on here. So Philippians 4 says this: I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content. Whatever the circumstances, I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or living in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. Philippians 4 gives us some instructions about acceptance that we can help our students understand and help them live with. One is rejoicing. No matter what's going on in the world, what's happened, what's going to be happening, they can respond in joy. Rejoice, they respond in joy. We need to teach our students the way to live in acceptance is a start with responding with joy. The second thing is I learned to be content. We need to be teaching our students contentment. Paul's talking here and saying, you know what, no matter whether I've had food or not had food, whether I've been healthy or sick, whatever I've gone through, he's writing to the Philippians and saying, you know what, whatever state I've been in, and Paul's went through some rough times. He says, I've learned to be content. What we need to do is we need to help students learn contentment. Learn contentment in what they've gone through, what they're going through, and that they can find a place to be content. And I know a lot of sports teams, a lot of t-shirts have been made about this verse, but in context, it's the correct context. It says, I can do all things through him who gives me strength. And that's not talking about a sports thing. It's not talking about weightlifting. It's actually just talking about living life. It's not about Paul doing life in rough situations. He's responding in joy. He's learning to be content, but he's relying on God for strength. In order for our students to truly get to a point of acceptance coming out of this, they need to understand the strength of the Lord. That they can do anything through Christ who strengthens them. And it's about spiritual, it's about social, it's about struggle with the things they're going through, the circumstances. So that's the first challenge, helping our students to come to acceptance. I think coming out of this and going into the next battle is going to be anxiety. We have a lot of students deal with a lot of anxiety. Realistically, I mean, if we're real, probably a lot of you have been dealing with anxiety. I know if there's been moments in the last couple months, I've dealt with some anxiety and my family's gone through some anxious moments, but we've learned a lot. I can tell you personally what I've learned through all of this. But the fact is, we have a growing generation of anxiety, even pre-COVID, before all this hit. The fact is, I put some of these things up here. According to the CDC, pre-COVID, 4.4 million kids ages 3 to 17 have diagnosable anxiety disorders. We have a generation of anxious, worried, stressed students. 4.4 million pre-COVID. 1.9 million kids ages 3 to 17 have been diagnosed with depression. We have a generation that feels hopeless and feels lonely and feels sad, clinically sad, diagnosably sad, pre-COVID. So 78% are receiving treatment or medication for anxiety or depression. 78% of the students we just talked about are receiving some kind of treatment, some kind of medication for their anxiety, for their depression. And the fact is, we're reading more and more about the rise of anxiety. I think roughly 1 in 3, it was one of the things I read, 1 in 3 students between the ages of 12 and 18 are dealing with some kind of additional anxiety, additional stress, additional depression during the last 4 months. So think about your group. 1 in 3 students that walk in your door are feeling some level of high anxiety, high depression because of what's going on. The fact is, we know historically, during national disasters, suicide rates will rise 30%. And if you read and you look around a little bit, you're starting to hear the statistics. I was looking around trying to find the best numbers, and there's numbers all over the place. What we do know is there are kids who are committing suicide or attempting suicide during the last 4 months. So as we come out of this and we work with students, we're talking to students, we're gonna hear stories about anxiety, about depression. We're gonna hear stories about students who've considered suicide. Maybe they'll have a friend that committed suicide or attempted suicide. They're online looking up information. We already have a high suicide rate among this generation, and now we've been locked in for 4 months with levels of anxiety and worry and fear. I want you to help you a little bit to understand the levels of where our students might be at. This is something that I presented with my students over the years. It's something I've worked through. We actually have a series on this that I work with students. When it comes to anxiety and fear. The first one is concern. I think we all kind of deal with this, but our students are concerned. A few months ago when this all was starting, there was a lot of students very concerned. But as their concern grows, their parents' concern grows, it becomes worry. You know, we begin to have worry. And the Bible talks about worry. The Bible does. And we have these students who are starting to feel worried. We have a lot of students, probably the majority of students we are talking to are coming back through our doors. The next week or next couple weeks, we'll have concern and worry. And then we continue to be worried. The problem is when worry becomes a little bit deeper and they start feeling stress. Once again, we have a generation that is very stressed. Thanks to the pressure of academics, of athletics, of social norms and peer pressure and social media and all those things, there's a stress level that's happening that's leading to anxiety. It's more than concern, it's more than worry. We have a generation that's stressed. And how they deal with that stress is not always the best. We're talking about that in a minute, how they deal with some of that. But probably every single student walks in our doors, will be stressed. But the 2 biggest things are gonna be the things we need to be really ready for. Is gonna be fear, that level up from just being stressed to having fear. And fear is the opposite of faith. And we have a lot of students whose homes are living in fear, not in faith. This is not a political thing, this is not an argument thing, this is just simple facts. We remove faith from the equation of our lives and we live in fear. Perfect love casts out fear. We have a loving Father who wants us to believe and to follow Him. And we have students that have gone beyond stress to just full-on fear. They're living in fear. And we have a lot of things. The news is filled with a lot of fear. And it doesn't help our students. But the biggest problem is we have a few students, and probably a lot more than there used to be. In fact, we're dealing with panic attacks, anxiety attacks. They'll have a variety of names, but that fear overtakes them. Actually, the Psalms talks about the fear at night and the panic David would go through. So we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for the fact that our students are going to be stressed. And they'll be going through multiple levels, and we're kind of working them back and forth through some of these levels. They'll be kind of letting up, things will go better, things will be happy, they'll be going all right, and then suddenly more news will come out, more cases will spike in your community, and they'll kind of go up and down. So in order to be prepared for the anxiety, we need to be looking at the levels. How do we deal with students that are concerned and worried? How do we just pray them through those moments? But what do we do when stress starts overtaking them? What are the ways that we help them cope with the stress? Even moving forward, after COVID is done, and we hopefully move into a little more of a normal time moving forward, how have we helped students? What are the tools we've given them to help them deal with stress? But I think the biggest thing coming back out of this is going to be fear and panic. How do we deal with students? How do we help them look to God, come out of this moment, conquer their fears? But there's going to be the students, for a good percentage of students, probably they're going to have some panic. They're going to have constant moments. I used to work with military families and military dads in one of our churches in DC. We had a lot of our dads, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We're going to have students coming out of this having some of those things, some of those symptoms. This has been a traumatic moment in our history of America. This has been a traumatic moment for this generation coming out. How do we help them get past that? How do we get to the point where they can feel at peace again? So once again, going back to Philippians, I want to give you some resources, some ways that you can talk to your students. Once again, all this is available to you to present to your families, to present to your leaders. But Philippians 4 says this: rejoice. Once again, our word rejoice. Rejoice, Lord, always. And again, I say rejoice. He repeats it. All right. Respond in everything with turning back to joy. Get away from the sadness. Go now, more than happiness. We need to go to joy. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. We need to approach our students with gentleness. Patience. The Lord is near. Once again, we're talking about God. God is present. Do not be anxious about anything. So we want our students to know you don't have to be anxious. But we also want to give them tools to overcome the anxiety. That's why I love this verse. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, we want to teach our students how to pray. If there's never been a moment that you haven't done this is the moment. This is a great moment for you to teach your students how to pray effectively. But also to have a list, a petition. What are the list of things that are making me anxious? Allow your students to sit down with them. Sit down with the student with a piece of paper and a pen and say, hey, look, let's make a list. Let's get rid of this. Let's figure out what the panic, let's figure out what the anxiety is. And then let's pray about it. Let's petition God with thanksgiving. Present your requests to God. It's going to be hard for our students to come out of this moment feeling like they're thankful. Honestly, hopefully we're all done with this by Thanksgiving, by November. But if nothing else, we have November coming and we need to sit down and say, all right, what does it look like for us to respond to 2020, to thank God, to be thankful. But once again, we are presenting whatever it is, our prayers and our requests to God, teaching our students how to pray. Because what's going to happen? If we do this, they're going to have not anxiety, but peace. Peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard their hearts and minds to Jesus Christ. Paul's talking to us to say, look, here's how to deal with rough situations. Paul's gone through a lot. He's trying to encourage the Philippians who are going through a lot. He says, hey, here's the tools you need to deal with anxiety, with stress, with worry, with fear, with panic. He says, look, do not be anxious. Pray. Make a list. Respond in joy, but also give thanks to God. Even in the tough moments, find ways to be thankful for what God's done, and also present your request to God. What happens in all of this, our students will come out of this. They'll have a peace, not a fear, but a peace that doesn't make sense. Our friends, family around them say, because we're doing something with God. Helping them understand that they can protect their mind and their heart by prayer. So we've talked about this idea of acceptance. We've talked about this idea of anxiety. A great resource, and I'll put the link in our notes, by Kara Powell. She's been doing a great job. It's called Faith in an Anxious World. It's a 4-week series. Actually, my daughter is attending a youth group right now, and they're doing this online together. So I've seen the results of this series. So there's a link in our notes as well. Go check that out. Kara Powell's done a great job. Fuller Youth Seminary, Youth Institute has done a great job putting a lot of resources together. She's the author of Seeking Faith and some of those things. But here's a great resource that she put out. You can actually kind of Google this. She's done some great podcasts talking about this and just kind of helping you deal with that. So great resource. We want to make sure we have that resource in there. Beyond what I'm saying, there's some great resources out there. I think the third thing that's going to happen in the middle of all this is we're going to have students emerging from the quarantine with addictions. And this immediately you're thinking, okay, they're the obvious things, but I want you to hang with me for a moment because it's not always just what you think. I put a definition of addiction up here just to help you a little bit. Anything you have become compulsively dependent on mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, or spiritually. And I put spiritually in there. This is a definition that I use with my students when we do a series on addictions. We talk about this idea of being compulsively dependent mentally, emotionally, physically, and socially. Socially is a big one, but also spiritually. And I put this in here. Anything to have habitually turn to instead of turning to God. We've had 3 or 4 months of students turning to other things other than God, habitually, dramatically, over and over again. We have students who are kind of turning to a variety of things. And it's not necessarily the things that you think about. What we're gonna come up with, we know this, we're gonna have this moment when we get back from all that's happening, and we're gonna realize that our students have been doing some things, maybe not bad things, but good things that have become addictions in their life that are taking them away from an opportunity to be with God. If they're gonna accept what's happening, if they're gonna get past some of the anxiety, they also need to overcome the things they've replaced God with in their life. They need to understand the things they become more dependent on instead of depending on God. What are the things that mentally they've been thinking about, they depend on in their mind? What are the things they're thinking about emotionally? What is the emotional baggage? What is the emotional thing they're taking when they're feeling something? Do they turn to God or do they turn to something else? Physically, there's some physical addictions that our students will be dealing with. There's gonna be some social addictions, but also there's some spiritual things. The hardest thing I think we're gonna see when it comes to youth ministry after this is all over is we're gonna see our kids spiritually depending on other things and not on the things of God. That's why I'm gonna put this up here a little bit. Some addictions that we will be dealing with, some things I think you're gonna be hearing about, some things you're gonna be talking about with your students when you come out of this. First is chemical. I put this up here, chemical addictions. There's kind of the obvious ones, put the opposite ones up first. But we're gonna have students who have turned to alcohol. Students who have found ways to sneak mom and dad's alcohol, found ways to get alcohol. They're gonna turn to illegal drugs. We're gonna have students who have kind of found ways to get a hold of some things. They've through the stress and the anxiety of all of this, they've found some ways to get illegal drugs, prescriptions, legal drugs. What are the things that maybe it's okay for them to have, but they've been abusing? What are the anti-anxiety medicines they've had? The ADHD medicines they have at home? What is maybe medicines they've had in the cabinet? Maybe mom and dad's, grandma, grandpa's, aunts, uncles, some other prescriptions that they've kind of got a hold of that are not their own. Or maybe it is their own and they've abused it. But also we know this, even pre-COVID, there's been a big trend of vaping. Smoking is kind of seen its kind of day. It's kind of, kids kind of know. We've seen enough of the crazy, ugly, weird commercials about tobacco. But I know pre-COVID, we were dealing with this at epidemic proportions in my daughter's school and my youth ministry. We've done retreats recently where this has been a struggle, where students just can't get over the fact that they can't have a vape. There's a lot of students sneaking vapes. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things we're hearing about come a few months from now or a few weeks from now when we get done with all of this is students who are just completely addicted to some chemical substance, and probably more likely, above all those things, I think it'll probably see a big trend in vaping. Thanks to some online sites, there's a lot of things being delivered to homes. There's a lot of things that are being put on a cover. If you haven't done the research, realize vape pens are not just pens. They're watches, they're markers, they're look like flash drives. They look like a variety of things. So, be aware that when your students come back to youth ministry, you might find some things you could not imagine being their vapor, and that's what they'll be doing. I think physical. I think there's a lot of physical addictions are come out of this. There's a lot of physical addiction. I think there's gonna be some students who are gonna be abusing food. They've been home, they're either overeating or undereating, or they're abusing food. There's gonna be some physical addictions that are happening. I think in the middle of this, there's gonna be physically body image stuff. Be some students that they eat or don't eat, but also there's gonna be a lot of students who've been working out to the extremes. They've been home alone, they've been home, stuck at home. So start working out. That's great, stay healthy. But we know that there's also students through the variety of addictions, bulimia, anorexia, there's also this moment of overworking, underworking, becoming addicted to working out. Something that we've had to deal with in some counseling. But also I think there's some physical things, some sexual things that are gonna happen physically. There's gonna be some addictions. Realistically, let's be real. We're working with students. Students have had a lot of time by themselves. There's gonna be some things we're gonna deal with. There's gonna be some things they're gonna be doing with, they've experimented with sexually. There was some times they're gonna be, maybe masturbating, other things are happening. So we know this. We know physically there's gonna be some things they're gonna be addicted to. Even, young students, time alone, they'll be experimenting with things. And that'll kind of lead, we'll talk about the technology piece of that in a moment. These are some social things. I think in all of this, there's gonna be some unhealthy relationships that have developed. Unfortunately, we love mom and dads. We do love parents. But also these moments like this, where you have a lot of time locked up, we're seeing a big trend of coming out of this, I think, of codependency. That students have become so dependent, become unhealthily dependent on mom and dad in some relationships. And there's gonna be some things that come out of that. I think also gonna be some abusive relationships. I didn't put this in here as another point, I probably could have. But realistically, there's gonna be some homes that are not healthy places, sexually or physically. And we're gonna be dealing with abuse. And there's gonna be relationships that become kind of an addiction. There's gonna be some abuses that happen in the privacy of homes. I know this is gonna be a hard one for us, but realistically, as we come out of this, we're gonna hear a big uptick of physical, verbal, mental, and social abuse, sexual abuse even, that we'll be dealing with. And there's also gonna be an element of this that's become part of the norm in some of these kids' lives socially, spiritually, mentally, physically. And there's gonna be things that are not gonna be good. Even I think sometimes we might even hear some things about students abusing their siblings and other things that are coming out. I just wanna be real with you. I want to get you ready for what's gonna happen post-COVID. But I think finally put on here technology. I think there's gonna be some technology addictions. There's gonna be some pornography. Students have had a lot of time in their rooms, on their phones, on their devices, on their computers, iPads, whatever. And I think we're gonna see a huge, huge uptick. I've heard enough, I've talked to some people, I've doing some research. There's a huge uptick in pornography use among underage students. I think we're gonna have some students coming out sexually addicted, physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually addicted because of the technology addiction. They've turned to something else to relieve their stress, to deal with some of the anxiety, to do something to escape what's happening. And unfortunately, both guys and girls, let's be real, and girls have turned to this. Maybe it first starts off as curiosity, maybe it starts off as boredom, maybe it starts off as just a way to cope or do something. But I think there's gonna be some things that come out of technology. I think social media, students have spent a lot of time on social media and they become an addiction. They become so dependent. The codependency, the relational, social addiction becomes part of a technology addiction. And the last thing is video games. Maybe it's a girl thing, but I know it's a guy thing. A lot of guys have just spent a lot of time on video games to the point it's become almost obsessive. It become an addiction to them. And they've turned there to be an escape from the reality. And I get that and understand that, but what's happening is it goes to the extreme. And what happens, it becomes so dependent that it's gonna have a hard time breaking and getting back to the reality of life. A few resources I want to present. It's some of my own resources, some of the resources from ministryofparents.com. My friend Tony Bianco and myself put together some resources for you. You can kind of buy this series, helping parents learn about technology, one post at a time. We have a whole variety of things in our tech series. You can kind of check that out. There's a link right there. And then also we have some great resources on Ministry of Parents about helping parents stay safe online during COVID. So as we wrap this up, there's a lot of great resources and a lot of great hints. But as we wrap this up, I want to go back to Philippians 4, and this way we're going to go back toward the end, 8 and 9. It says this: finally, brothers and sisters, Whatsoever is true, whatsoever is noble, whatsoever is right, whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is lovely, whatever is admirable, or anything that is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received and heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Once again, some really great helpful hints for you to talk to your students about the things they're becoming addicted to, right? Socially, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all these things. If they go back and say, all right, what is this? What's true? Can I get back to the truth, not a lie? Going online, looking at things, living just a fake reality through video games. That's not true. Not bad, but it's not the truth. Are the things they're looking at, doing, the things they're becoming addicted to, are they noble? Are the things that they're doing, smoking, taking, ingesting, are they noble? Is this right? What they're doing, is it right? Is it pure? Is it lovely? Is it admirable? When you talk to our students, say, hey, the things that you've let come into your life, post-COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, things that you're letting overtake your life, are these things that you want? Is this the most excellent, praiseworthy life you want to be living? Because what happens is whatever you have and learned, received, and heard, Paul's talking, is like, you know what? This is our opportunity as youth leaders, teaching. I want to role model this for my students. So they put it into practice. So what? The God of peace will be with you. They have God's presence. As much as they're trying to accept some of the things that are going on, as much as they're going through some of the anxiety, as much as they're going through the addictions, they have God. They have a God of peace that's going to help them go through and come out of this. And you have a God of peace too. You as a youth leader, as you come out of this moment, I know you're probably feeling with some things as well. Look at Philippians 4. Take the time for yourself, take the time with your family, take time with your leaders, get them ready to talk to your students. Take them through Philippians 4. That's my helpful hint. Instead of me doing some cute thing to kind of give you some, a couple quick ideas and some tricks, let's just go back to God's word. Look at Philippians 4 and talk about with your students how to overcome some of these things, but also help you get ready for what's going to happen in the next couple weeks. Once again, my name is Dan Istvanik. I put a whole lot of links here so you can kind of find me. You can find me on my website, middleyearsministry.com, mymresources.com. My email is youthguydan@hotmail. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. But I'm sure you've been waiting all the way through. So as a reward for the opportunity, Mel and I have talked about it, but I have a code for you. So if you would like to get some free games, you can play on Zoom, you can play when you get back to youth group. I have probably 35, 40 games, online games, PowerPoint games, slide games, a variety of games on my website. I'm gonna give you 2 for free. If you use the code Vision for Youth, so VFY 2020, you can get 2 free games on me. We just want to help you out in the best way we can. Go through the website, share that with anybody you want, post it up. I don't care. We want to just give away some stuff. We want to help you as you come out of COVID, you get ready to go back to group. Feel free to download 2 free games to help you out with all of this. I love being a part of this opportunity. I love being a part of what you're doing. I will encourage you, if you're feeling discouraged, if you're not sure what to do next, if you want some advice, I think any one of us that are presenting right now, Tim and Mel, but I'd be more than happy. Feel free to email me. Feel free to get a hold of me on Facebook and Instagram. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to answer any questions, give you more information about what I talked about. Let me just pray with you and encourage you. That's who we are. That's what we want to do. So I want to just thank you so much for taking time to listen in. And good luck. We'll be praying for you. I really honestly will be praying for you as you return to youth ministry post-COVID.